can the Tories reinvent themselves, or are they done as a political force? Can the Tories reinvent themselves, or are they done as a political force? Because Marcus Fish has actually put out on social media this tweet. Responding to a user who asked whether he would join Reform UK, he said no. But he also said this: I hereby resign from the Conservatives. It's dead. No chance of ever being electable again with its current non-Conservative parliamentary composition. Move on. Let's do something else. So, to the point, can the Tories reinvent themselves, or are they done as a political force? 0345 6060973, text 84850, or ask Alexa to send a comment to LBC. I'll give you my thoughts on this. Having been in the past deeply involved in Tory politics and been in these situations a number of times before, I've got a few thoughts which I will share with you in a few moments. But joining me now is Marcus Fish, former MP for Yeovil. Hi, Marcus. And he was elected 3 times as MP for Yeovil, holding the seat from 2015 to 2024. Marcus, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Good afternoon to you. Why are the Tories dead?
Well, I just think that we need to recognise reality here, and the reality is that the MPs that are there are very unlikely to go for the sort of policy programme and be convincing about it that's going to be required in this new modern era post-Brexit for a centre-right party to win on. So I think that just needs to be acknowledged. And unless they're prepared to do that, unless they're prepared to, want to make the most of being outside the EU, which the parliamentary party doesn't want to, and unless they are wanting to be the sort of small c Conservative party of the centre-right that the broad spectrum of people in the country want them to be, then it just doesn't have a future. And we're just... it is better, I think, to think about replacing it with something that is going to do those things.
But isn't that Reform UK?
No, I don't think it is. Reform are not really a sort of serious party of thinkers and organised into a proper coherent values-based political party, and they do pander to various slightly dodgy associations on the right, and they have some strange things out there, So I don't want to be associated with that, and I don't think the British people want that to be where we go either in the longer term.
Marcus, what is
it has to be in that centre and centre right, and I don't think they're capable of doing that.
Okay, so Marcus, just to get it clear, I mean, you were a minister in Liz Truss's government. What is your prescription for, if you were still in the Tories, I mean, you've given up and walked away, but if you were still there, what would you be imploring the Conservatives to actually do, even though you think that with the intake of MPs that they've got now that they're not going to get to the position you want, but what is the position you're advocating for?
Well, yeah, so I would have, if I had been re-elected, been arguing that we would need to do total reconstruction of the brand. I think the Conservative brand, because it hasn't delivered on its promises, is fundamentally a problem now. And I think it's had its Gerald Ratner moment where people realise that it doesn't do what it says on the tin. And so that needs addressing. So I think we need to start again, basically. And if it were me, I would be arguing within the leadership contest that any new leader had to basically do that to be credible.
But I agree with you that if it may need to start again, fine. But what does starting again look like in terms of the actual policy positions, the ideological positioning? What would you be advocating?
So it needs to be a very human approach, speaking human to that broad wave of people about the small c Conservative prescriptions for enabling people to grow their incomes, essentially, to have a better life. We know that life has been hard since the pandemic, the inflation that kind of took off because of that, and it's now back under control, which is great. But those higher prices are still really painful, and we need to incentivize business, and we need to really sell that as the only game in town, and do everything that we can to cut the taxes on business and to really incentivize growth and actual activity that's based on people doing things that are of value for other people.
But
and that's how we do it. So it's about skills and opportunities, and just doing everything we can to motivate and incentivize that type of growth and growth in people's income, so that they can afford the higher.
But Marcus, you talk about small c Conservative. I mean, this is a party that effectively booted out in 2019 the likes of One Nation Conservatives like David Gauke, Rory Stewart, Philip Hammond. I mean, these are serious figures, thinkers, people who've been in government at the very highest levels, cabinet ministers who are effectively turfed out of the party when it went into a rightwards Brexit-loving direction, which has patently not been delivered on, as you yourself are saying the Tories have failed to deliver, and has effectively become a pressure group for certain views on the right. It's not a broad church anymore. It was always a broad church, and that's where it seceded from.
I disagree with that. The independence that we have from the EU enables us to really deliver on that human agency that I'm talking about. That's what people wanted from the Brexit vote, and any centre-right party has to champion that. They have to champion that. Otherwise, the right will be split. And that is why I say it's not electable again unless it does that. And my judgment is that the current crop of MPs in the Tory Parliamentary Party doesn't want to do that.
Okay.
So that's why I'm just calling it how I see it. I think it's over for it.
All right, Marcus, thank you very much indeed. A pretty sobering prescription there from Marcus Fisher, former MP for Yeovil. He's got skin in the game, or at least he had skin in the game, which is why I wanted to talk to him. I mean, if Marcus Yeovil, who's just lost his seat to the Liberal Democrats in Somerset and Yeovil, after 3 successive general election victories, thinks it's over for the Tories, it's not exactly a ringy endorsement, is it? Now, let me just give you a couple of bits of flavour from the Sunday papers around all the various pronouncements coming out from different parts of the Tory party. So, Suella Braverman, you know her. The usual, right? The usual. So she's saying that the Conservatives deserved, their historic election defeat. She also says that Rishi Sunak pursued an idiotic strategy and suggests that some of her colleagues treated voters like mugs. Now, she also said that Rishi might not have meant Rwanda and did not do it, but I meant it and wanted it done. The promise he'd do it is why I'm the guilty woman who helped make him PM. Look, Suella, I don't think it was just down to you. I know that you've got a big opinion of yourself, but it wasn't just down to you, okay? So don't be too hard on yourself. She also says this, so few colleagues who survived letting Rishi be Rishi still don't get it. Many saw the result coming months ago and advised a way out. We were vilified as divisive and self-indulgent. One colleague told me to STFU. You can work out what that means. Shut the up. I don't want to upset my producer, Dan, who was looking at me glaringly just there. But you get the picture. She said it was an idiotic strategy, intermittently and inconsistently making Tory right noises, which disintegrated when set against our liberal conservative record. She criticises the approach to tax, to immigration, to trans issues, and she says, whatever some of the colleagues think, voters aren't mugs. They saw what we did in office and ignored what we insincerely said whilst campaigning. So she's putting the boot in big time. Robert Jenrick, in a similar vein, he's basically saying that in 2/3 of the seats we lost, the reform vote was greater than the margin of the Conservatives' defeat. Critically, this happened everywhere, north and south. Many, myself included, only hung on because we were able to successfully subdue the threat from reform. He goes on to say, we got Brexit done, but we must collectively confront a hard truth. We then failed to deliver the strong economy, NHS and secure border we promised. So Robert Jenrick also putting the boot in, basically saying that the Tories didn't deliver. I don't think there's any doubt there. Now, the interesting thing is that Michael Howard's popped up grandee of the Tory Party, who is a former leader himself, saying this: "We will not achieve success by adopting a sectional approach or pitching our policies to appeal to a narrow section of the electorate. The development of that alternative needs and must be given time. The challenges facing the country in 5 years' time are likely to be different from those we face today. Given the rate of change in today's world, some quite radical solutions may be required." So he's calling for a slow leadership context and time to think, just time to breathe. And Ben Houchen, who's probably the most successful Tory in the country right now, he's been elected as the Conservative mayor in Tees Valley again only recently, said this: "If my experience tells me anything," he's got an op-ed out in the Times today, "it is that reactionary politics are not the answer to our recent setback. The Conservative Party's true failing was not ideological, nor was it due to the election campaign or Rishi Sunak. The loss stemmed from a loss of confidence and trust, and the lack of belief in our ability to deliver at Westminster. The idea that we haven't been right-wing enough ignores the fact that while Reform ate into our vote, we also lost dozens of seats to the Liberal Democrats, yet we're focused on effective governance. Where we're focused on effective governance, we have seen significant electoral successes." He goes on to say this: "People crave competence from their leaders, and while they're canny enough not to expect miracles, they will reward those who think they are making progress. Talent and energy and enthusiasm and flair are evenly spread across the UK, as one leader said. Opportunity is not." That is the statement we must not forget. We must reject the clumsy argument being made that some clumsy rightward shift would somehow magically solve the problems we face. Look, I'll give you my thoughts on this. The Tory Party is in a complete and utter mess, gargantuan mess of its own making. Why? Because, as Ben Houchen says, and I think he's got the prescription absolutely bang on here, there are two things that people expect from the Tory Party, even though they don't like them. They expect them to be not ideologically necessarily driven, but just competent in actually delivering for the people. And they also need to trust that there's an element of competence in actually running a government. So if you've got changes of government happening every 5 minutes, this is a complete and utter disaster. It's a disaster for business. It makes the country a laughingstock in the international world. And it also gives people no security at all that they've got a government that knows a blind bit about what they're doing. And by the way, if you're going to make promises, huge promises around immigration, around delivering economically for people, if you're achieving 0.7% growth, right, and I accept that there was COVID and all these things, and Brexit was the biggest act of self-harm that the country's done, and I get all this. You can't be telling people you're going to control immigration, which we were talking about in the last hour, and then treble it. It's a complete disgrace. So the Tory Party, it's a busted flush. I'm not sure it needs to have a complete rebrand, but at the moment in its present form, it is a busted flush. Now, having been there before, and having been there when the Tories lost in 2001 and 2005, and seen successive leadership elections, I don't think that anyone really cares right now about what the Tories want to do in terms of their leader. No one cares. No one's listening. What I would advise the Tory Party to do is go away, actually do some proper soul searching before rushing into another leadership contest, which is inward looking and all about you. This isn't a lesson in narcissism here. You're there to deliver now, to be Her Majesty's loyal opposition. Go and think about how you're going to do that. No one's listening to you for the next 2 to 3 years, so don't rush. Do not rush into a leadership election. Let Rishi Sunak stay there. He's not going anywhere at the moment. Go and work out why you failed. And it's not down to idiotic policies on the part of the Prime Minister. It's down to many, many things, or putting it down to a substandard election campaign. There are deep issues why you lost. Go and work it out before you rush into a leadership campaign, and then come back and work out what you're going to do. And by the way, those people who are writing off the Tory Party, it's been written off many times before, as the Labour Party was written off in 2019. And look at what happened with Keir Starmer within the space of 5 years, back in government with a massive majority. The electorate's very volatile. The Tory Party is not over, but it's certainly down and out for now. Go and lick your wounds. Go and work out what's going on. Go and have a proper debate thoughtfully about the challenges the country face, why you failed to deliver, and how to actually achieve competence and stability in government. And it might form the basis of a conversation in 3 years' time when people might listen to you.